So this first build video will be routing the brake hoses and routing the internal Di2 for both the frame and handlebars. It ended up being much longer than I expected, so I'm just gonna leave the time codes here for different parts if you want to jump to something quick. Let's get the building. So I prepared the hose and connected the rear caliper. If you want to see more in-depth information about that, check my previous video about installing the Derailleur disc brakes. Link in the description. I always try to route the hoses through the smallest hole, which normally is the chainstay. So just try to thread the hose through the chainstay and take it out through the bottom bracket shell. To make sure we don't have any rattling inside the frame, we're gonna use the foam tube that came with the frame set. Can be tricky to get on, but pull it and then push it and pull it and push it, and eventually you get it on. Just remember to pull it back enough, because it's really hard to shift the foam inside the frame later. So once we have the foam tube on, we need to get the hose up in the down tube. There we go. If you remove the fork, you should be able to actually reach the hose down at the head tube. Luckily on this open, the port for the hose is almost in front of the head tube, so I could just grab the hose through the head tube and guide it through the opening. And after everything is routed through the frame, I'm just attaching the rear caliper loosely so it won't move around unnecessarily. I wouldn't actually route the front brake hose at this stage early in the build. I would usually cut my steer tube before that, which is what I did, but I will just include this part as it's part of the routing. It will be much easier if you don't have anything connected to the fork when you cut the steer tube. Just a tip. Depending on the fork, it can be really hard to thread the hose from one opening to the other. What I did here is I used some pretty flexible steel wire and then used a wheel magnet to guide that steel wire from the top of the fork through the bottom opening. A bit of fishing and you should be able to get the wire out. There we go. And once the wire is out, you thread the end of the brake hose onto the wire and then push the hose through the hole while guiding it with the wire. It should be pretty easy to guide it through the opening at the top of the fork. There we go. So moving on to the Di2 internal routing. To make our special routing tool, we're going to use the same wire we just used to fish the hose down the fork, and we're going to use one of these brake wire ferrules. We'll just thread the wire through the ferrule and then use a pair of pliers just to make a little hook at the end so the ferrule won't come off. Something like this. So these ferrules are the perfect size for a Di2 connector. If it's a bit loose, you can just use the pliers to give it a tiny squeeze and it should be tight enough. You just don't want it to disconnect when you pull the wire through the frame. That's tight enough. Then just make sure you have enough wire. 1 meter, 1.5 meters should cover the whole frame. So, I'm gonna prepare all the cables by using the Di2 cable clips, just to make sure it's not rattling in the frame. We don't like that nasty sound. I usually put the clips on like 20-25 centimeters apart or something like that. Should look something like this. Then I take our routing tool and thread the naked end through the frame. Take it out through the bottom bracket shell. Connect the Di2 cable. Make sure it's snug enough so it doesn't come loose. Then just simply pull the one side and watch it go through the frame. Super simple. Frustration zero. Just disconnect the cable once it's out the bottom bracket. Then do the same procedure in the C-tube for the battery. And just make sure you have enough length left so you will be able to connect it to the seat post battery. It doesn't have to be much, just enough so you can grab the cable basically. Now, in the case of this the opening at the dropout is too small to actually use clips, and it doesn't fit our tool either. So here I actually had to just try and push the cable through by hand, and after some back and forth I managed to get it through in the end. And just to make sure that damn rattling doesn't happen, at least try to pull it out as long as you can without pulling it through. Attach one clip and then pull it back to the length you need. All good. Then let's connect the internal junction. I actually wrapped the junction in a thin bit of foam and some electrical tape. If it starts moving in the frame, it won't make a rattling noise or a sound we don't want. Also, I'm running 1-wire, so I will plug one of the connectors with one of those Di2 plugs. Usually they come with the levers. Then we'll just connect the 3 cables. If you are sure you have some length to spare, especially from the down tube cable, you can wrap it around the junction and secure it with a zip tie, and that's just a safety precaution. So if you pull on the cable, like I don't know, if you crash or something, you won't disconnect the cable by mistake. If you do, it's gonna be a pain in the ass because you need to remove the bottom bracket to reconnect it again. So just a extra safety precaution there. And then just try to get it snug wherever it fits, basically. In my case, the down tube. I'm gonna try to make sure the cable clips keeps it in place. I have drilled 2 holes on the drops on my handlebars. I have a longer video of this you can check out in the description. So for the handlebar area, I will connect the cable from the internal junction to my right shifter, and from my right shifter down to the handlebar end junction. And from the junction internally, I will have one cable going from the junction to the other side of the handlebar, out through the bottom and up to the left shifter. And to do this, I have another trick. So we want to run a Di2 cable internally through this handlebar. And to do this, we need some rope. Hope you can figure out what this is, we need some electrical tape and a pair of scissors, and last but not least, a vacuum cleaner. So we'll start by attach the Di2 cable to the rope and try to get the transition between the rope and the cable as smooth as possible so it won't snag inside the handlebar. Usually they can be pretty rough inside. Something like this should do. Then we'll need enough rope to reach through the handlebars, and we'll insert the one end of the rope in the handlebar, and at the other end we'll simply use the vacuum cleaner to suck the rope through. You may have to jank it a bit back and forth, but eventually, hopefully, you can get it through. And then gently pull the rope. Same here, might have to go a bit back and forth, but hopefully you can get the cable through. And if you want to be really cautious about rattling noises like me, attach a few of those Di2 cable clips. I wouldn't worry too much though. If you don't have cable clips, you can also use zip ties. With the bar and the levers back on the bike, don't forget to put on any cable stops or frame ports or that kind of stuff. In this case, I need to thread it on the hose, and it's simply a slot for the Di2 cable there, so but it could be easy to forget. Now is also a good time to put on the heat shrink tubing if you're planning on using that. Once you connect the brake hose, you won't be able to put it on unless you cut the cable again, so just do it now and so you don't forget it. And make sure it's long enough. In my case, I cut it way too short. Now we just need to connect everything and make sure it actually works. So start by connecting the right shifter to the bar end junction. And then from the bar end junction, using the cable we just routed through the handlebar. And on the other side, we're just gonna thread the Di2 cable through the drilled hole and up to the shifter. Then we will connect the battery. I have this rubber holder for a seat post. I think it's either Ritchey or Di2, I don't remember. But you could use foam as well, you don't need to have this actually. Let's connect the cable and push it down. Then we'll connect the rear mech as well. And the torque is printed on the screw. I think it's 7 to 9 Newton meters. And connect the Di2 cable. Make sure the last cable is connected to the shifter, and we should have a working Di2 setup. Make sure it's shifting as it's supposed to, and give the cables a little wiggle just to be sure that everything is connected thoroughly. So that's it for this part of the video. The next video I think I will speed up most of the build because I've done a lot of different parts in other videos. I will point those out during the video. So stay tuned for the next one. Subscribe if you feel like it. And a big thank you to Cyclism.jp for helping me sorting this frame out here in Japan. And full disclosure, he gave me a small discount, but I still had to pay an arm and a leg to get the frame. So cup ramen in the next couple of months. See you in the next one. Peace!